Thank you very much. Good morning. Thanks for the invitation and that the trade unionist can contribute to the debate. And well, first of all, I'm representing the European Trade Union Confederation. And what is that? Well, it's the European Confederation of Trade Unions. And I represent 89 member organizations all over Europe. And when I say Europe, I mean Europe and not the European Union. We have member organizations in 35 countries in Europe, and in total it representing the ETUC represents 45 million workers. And just a few words about myself. I'm a metal worker, and I served an apprenticeship in a company where we produce combine harvesters. And so I know really physical work, and technology is something I like very much. And I think technology is not a problem. Technology is a solution. But we have to have, of course, we have to address a lot of other issues. And during my career, of course, I was pretty much influenced, although I was working all the time on a European issues, I was influenced by the German model of social relations and industrial relations, and that means we have a close social dialogue on a company level, on a sectoral level, and on the national level. And during my career as trade unionist, I was working for 3 years as a labor director, so I was sitting at the other side of the table in a steel company, and I know both sides. The workers' representatives, and I was a representative of the management in a steel company, and so that is the reason why I'm quite often I'm doing the presentation to the industry, and I don't feel lonely, although I'm the only trade union speaker here. So sorry. I have the same slides as you, the 1 to 4, the Industrial Revolution, so I spare that. But one thing is pretty important, it's the speed of the Industrial Revolutions from 3 to 4. When I was preparing myself, I was reading an interesting figure. It's in 2002, we had the first time that we could store digitalized more data than analog, yeah? So, but the last 15 years, the speed was so enormous that this revolution is really a revolution, yeah? So it's manifold now. It's many times more what we can store on data as we did in the past. And digitalization, what is it about? I mean, transparency, information, access, communication, connectedness, consultation, and participation. All these words, all these issues for a trade unionist, they have all a positive connotation, but at the same time they can be pretty negative. Transparency and information and access means, for example, as a worker, you are transparent as a worker. You have a lot of information which are accessible by your employer, but maybe by the public, and so and maybe by institution you don't want it. So that is a reason why I say digitalization. Yes, it is very much a positive side, but it can turn into a negative. It can have negative effects as well, and that is the reason why I said, is it a dystopia or utopia, or is it somewhere in between? And does it lead to more precarious work, to a digital precariat, or to good and fair digital work? And the question of digitalization of industry, is it a question of percentage, or is it a strategic setup of European industries? And I said, I'm representing European trade unions, so I will work on a European view on it. And I think it is not the question of percentage, it is the question of a strategic policy making on a European level. And when we talk about Europe, we talk about, of course, about the member states, and there we have pretty much a divide. We have front runners, that is Germany, Ireland, Austria, Sweden. That the definition is given by Roland Berger, consultant. It's not our trade union view. We have potentialists and we have traditionalists, where when we talk about the different forms of industrial revolution, the traditionalists, they are belonging to 2 or 3, yeah? Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary, and Lithuania. They put that in the category of traditionalists because we still, and you said that as well, we still have we have manual work, and that will not completely disappear. Although robotization is advancing, but it will not completely disappear, and we have in some areas in Europe really not the same speed as we do have in the front runners or the potentialists. So that is a point where we as a European organization say that is highly a risk, that we have a regional divide, that we have some countries where the gap between the front runners and the traditionalists or the hesitators, where this gap will be even wider in the future when we do not do the right things on a European level. Digitalization is not just a technological issue or the question of the market. It's also about societal disruption and the just transition from traditional jobs to fair digital jobs in the industrial and service sector. It's a question of future society and cohesion. That is how we see it. We do not see it as a simple change of work. We see it as a complete change of society, and in particular of communication. And then the question, of course, for all trade unionists, although the headline here is in German, it's easy to see, does digitalization or robotization, does it take all the jobs from us? Will we, the workers, be the beggars and the machine gives us the money? Yeah? So that is, I think the picture says everything. And the question is, let me put it this way. Quite often it is when the discussion about digitalization and trade unions, the common prejudice is that trade unionists always think, oh, well, we have to defend our jobs and we don't want to lose the jobs. And there is a very interesting coincidence. Last year at the Davos summit, there was an announcement by an NGO saying we will lose millions of jobs due to digitalization. And at the same time, my home organization, the German Metal Workers Union, did a press release saying we are not afraid of it. The question is, how can we be involved in the process? Yeah, and we see a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, of course, we see risks. Digitalization effects on the labor market. It's the introduction of new technologies. Will we have a permanently higher level of unemployed, or step forward to working time reduction, for example, or a complete new definition of work? And effect is, of course, masculinization of workforce in the ICT sectors, with higher earning, the IT elite, and less diversity, actual or potential polarization of the workforce, with mid-skilled jobs disappearing. We have the ones who have the super knowledge, and the other ones who really have no knowledge at all. Do we have an erosion of medium range qualification? Certainly, and it is said all the time, new skills and competences are needed. But at the same time, we have new forms of outsourcing and let's say new forms of doing things. That is crowd working, it's workforce platforms, it's click workers, and so on. What we did is, of course, when I said we want to be involved in the process, we were together with Business Europe. You don't have to read that. It's just that is the declaration or the joint policy statement together with the European Employers Associations, that is Business Europe, that is SUAPME, that is Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and the public employers. And Business Europe is the biggest one, and we worked on a statement, on a policy statement on digitalization, because we want to shape digitalization, and whether digitalization will ultimately increase employment will depend on how successfully European enterprises adapt to technological developments and on the extent to which the EU will be able to create favorable policy and regulatory environment to safeguard the interest, and that is the important thing, the interest of enterprises and the working people. So that is a joint statement of the trade unions and the employers. And in particular, we want to ensure that the skills required in the changing labor market are secured. And of course, in our work program for the social dialogue on the European level, we include already the skills need, and we do jointly try to influence the policy of the European Commission. But as I said already, we addressed, even in that joint statement, we addressed the potential digital divides. Whether it's generational, that is one thing, that older workers are quite often regarded, well, is it worthwhile to invest in their qualification, or we just support the younger generation? It's gender-based, of course, the divide. Yeah, women are quite more often negatively affected by digitalization, and they play not so much the active role in the ICT, in information technology. And then we have a regional divide, I already addressed that, and of course a social divide, that is some with very low qualification and low employment, and some others where we have favorable and favorable working conditions and good salaries and good working condition in general. And there are, at the same time, we say there are opportunities for better work-life balance and the productivity, and that should be, of course, exploited, but it should be done jointly together with the employers and the trade unions. So in industry, currently we do have workers' representation in form of works councils, of European works councils. We have board-level representations. The same is applying for offices in the service industries. But what about workforce in IT platforms? How will they be represented? And I saw in the one presentation, I think in your presentation, you were addressing Uber as mobility, as a new mobility. Let's see about this generation, these Uber workers. And the first question is, are they workers or are they service providers? Are they self-employed or fake self-employed? And what do they get? Do they get a wage or salary, or do they get remuneration or honorarium? That is all questionable. And one thing is sure, they are human beings. They are human beings. And the question is, when they are older, the young Uber drivers, who pays their pension? And when they get sick, who cares about them? And who pays for that? And when they have no work, who cares about them? So that is, you may see that is an individual problem, but the last speaker before me, you addressed it with the ugly, what is it? Mike. You said that the ugly part of it. That is the ugly part, and you said social unrest. I would not go that far. I think we can prevent that, because we should, and that was my part, to actively shaping the fourth industrial revolution. I think we can do that by a social dialogue on all levels, in companies, at the workplaces, We can do that on a sectoral level. We can do that on a regional level where we have clusters. We can do that on the national level and on the European level. And we have to, of course, we have to let the workers and their representatives participate. Individually, that can be really very direct at the workplace. I have to look. I have 2 more minutes. And we can do that in the departments. We can do that via representatives, works councils, or comité d'entreprise. That is very much varies very much on the national law. Trade unions can be involved. Board members. We have in 18 countries in the European Union, we have trade union board members representation. We have committees, qualification, education, and so on. So workers' participation, I think it is absolutely key, and the social dialogue on all levels, I think that is really the way forward. We have to do it together in mutual respect and not only paying lip service. We hear that quite often as well. It should end in concrete agreements. And for example, very recently, 4 weeks ago, we signed on a European level an agreement, trade unions, ETUC, and the Business Europe and representatives of APME and SEB, all employers. We signed an agreement on active aging and intergenerational solidarity. That means younger should be in and older workers can withdraw from the labor market in dignity and not into poverty. That is what we want. And so we were able to negotiate. That is what a trade unionist likes to do, negotiate and have a proper agreement. And I think when we do it together, then we will not have what Mike said, social unrest. But we can do that only in mutual respect. Thank you very much.